Welcome back to our channel, my dear friends and coin lovers. Today we embark on a fascinating and extraordinary journey into the world of one of the most mysterious and astonishing coins in United States history, the 1974 Liberty Lincoln 1-cent coin, a penny that most people would simply overlook as just another small copper coin in their change jar. But hidden within the story of this coin lies one of the most breathtaking tales in numismatics, a tale that transforms what is normally just a cent into an object worth tens of millions of dollars. We are speaking of a coin that has been valued at a staggering $92 million, and the reasons behind this immense worth go far beyond its humble appearance. The value is rooted in its history, in its errors, in its minting mistakes, and in the rare varieties that exist, making this one of the most talked about and sought after coins by collectors and investors alike. The Lincoln cent was introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and it became the first regular issue coin in the United States to depict a real person. Its designer, Victor David Brenner, created a profile of Lincoln that captures his strength, his humanity, and his leadership. The word liberty appears to the left of Lincoln's portrait, and the national motto, "In God We Trust," rests above his head. The date is on the right, making the obverse side instantly recognizable to generations of Americans. On the reverse side, beginning in 1959, the design depicted the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., designed by Frank Gasparo, and if you look carefully at the memorial you can even see a tiny representation of the statue of Lincoln between the columns. This little detail made the coin both artistic and historic, reminding holders of the penny not just of Lincoln's life but also of the great monument built in his honor. By the year 1974, the United States was going through turbulent times. Inflation was high, commodity prices were climbing, and the cost of copper, the primary metal used in the penny, was becoming a problem. At one point, the intrinsic value of the copper in the coin came dangerously close to equaling or even exceeding the coin's face value of 1 cent. This created a dilemma for the U.S. Treasury and the Mint about whether to continue minting the penny in copper or explore alternatives, and it is this environment that gave birth to one of the most interesting experiments in coinage history. The standard 1974 penny was composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. It weighed 3.11 grams, and billions of them were struck at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints. But behind the scenes, the mint was experimenting with other metals, and in 1974 it struck more than 1 million experimental pennies on aluminum planchets weighing less than a gram, a fraction of the copper penny's weight. Some of these were distributed to members of Congress to test the practicality of switching the metal, but there was resistance from doctors who worried about children accidentally swallowing the lighter aluminum coins, and from industries like vending machines, which relied on the weight and conductivity of coins for proper operation. Eventually, the Mint abandoned the aluminum penny project and recalled nearly all of the test coins, ordering them to be melted, but not all of them were destroyed. A small handful slipped through the cracks into private hands. One of the most famous cases was a 1974 aluminum cent reportedly given to a congressman, which surfaced years later and became the subject of legal battles over its ownership. These aluminum cents are among the rarest coins in existence, and if authenticated and sold could bring millions of dollars in today's numismatic market. It is this kind of rarity and controversy that fuels the astronomical values associated with the 1974 penny. In addition to the aluminum experiments, there are other errors and varieties from 1974 that captivate collectors and can send values skyrocketing. Double die obverse varieties where inscriptions such as Liberty or the date show clear doubling are some of the most famous errors in American coinage. For 1974 pennies, a double die or repunched mintmark can transform a common coin into a rare collectible worth thousands, and in some cases even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Minting mistakes such as off-center strikes, broad strikes, or misaligned dies also exist from that year, and these errors are one of a kind. No two error coins are exactly the same, and collectors love that uniqueness. The 1974 penny is also famous because of transitional errors when coins are struck on planchets intended for another year or another denomination. The results can be fascinating. In the mid-1970s, as the Mint was transitioning between different compositions of metals, a few pennies were mistakenly struck on experimental planchets. These transitional errors are extremely rare, and each example carries enormous collector interest. When Discovered. When we talk about values reaching $92 million for a single penny, it is important to understand that such a valuation comes from a combination of factors: rarity, historical significance, condition, and market demand. In the case of the 1974 penny, it is the aluminum experimental strikes along with spectacular mint state copper examples and dramatic errors that account for such lofty appraisals. A coin that combines rarity with flawless preservation, graded by professional services as MS67 or higher, especially if it is a double die or other unique variety, could easily command headlines and record-breaking prices at auctions. Collectors know that condition is everything when it comes to value. The professional grading services such as PCGS and NGC assign grades based on a 70-point scale, with MS70 being perfection. A 1974 penny in circulation, worn and dull, may only be worth a cent, but one that remains in uncirculated red condition with vibrant luster, sharp details and no blemishes could be worth thousands. At the top end of the scale, coins like these are rare not because billions were not minted, but because very few were preserved with such perfection, and when combined with minting errors or experimental metal composition, the rarity increases exponentially. Let us imagine for a moment a flawless 1974 penny struck on an experimental aluminum planchet, one of only a handful in the world preserved in perfect condition, its surfaces glowing silvery bright, its weight so light that it feels almost like holding nothing at all. This tiny coin embodies a unique moment in history, a moment when the government was testing the future of currency, and yet fate allowed this small piece to survive outside official destruction. Such a coin is more than money, it is a piece of American heritage, and that is why collectors and investors place such enormous value upon it. The narrative of the 1974 penny also reveals a fascinating intersection of economics, politics, and collecting. It was born in a time when America was grappling with inflation, the oil crisis, and uncertainty in the global economy, yet the focus turned to even the smallest coin, the humble penny, as debates raged about its cost and practicality. It is almost poetic that this very coin became one of the most valuable in the nation's history. For everyday collectors, there is also the allure of searching through pocket change in hopes of finding a rare 1974 penny, whether it is a double die error, an off center strike, or a pristine red gem. The dream of discovering such a treasure adds excitement to the hobby. Countless stories exist of people finding rare coins tucked away in jars or inherited from relatives and realizing later that they possess a small fortune. The possibility that a $92 million coin could still be out there waiting to be discovered makes the 1974 penny legendary among treasure hunters. Auction houses have fueled this legend further by showcasing remarkable results for rare pennies, including those from 1974. While ordinary examples are abundant and worth very little, extraordinary examples have been the stars of coin auctions, fetching staggering sums. When a unique rarity crosses the auction block, it attracts attention not just from collectors but also from museums and investors seeking to own a piece of numismatic history. It is this intense demand that pushes the values into the tens of millions and secures the 1974 penny's place among the greatest treasures in coin collecting. Errors like the double die varieties are especially fascinating because they represent accidents in the minting process that should never have happened yet did. When the hub doubling created extra images on the coin, those imperfections became highly prized as symbols of uniqueness. Similarly, repunched mint marks, especially from the Denver Mint in 1974, offer intriguing variations that collectors catalog and pursue. Each of these tiny differences contributes to the tapestry of stories surrounding the 1974 penny. The Lincoln cent of 1974 is not just a coin, it is a story, a piece of American culture, and a symbol of how the smallest objects can carry the greatest value. From its origins in the economic struggles of the 1970s to the legendary aluminum cents to the thrilling varieties and errors that make each discovery unique, the coin has captured the imagination of generations. The $92 million valuation is not just a reflection of copper and aluminum, it is a reflection of history, desire, rarity, and the endless human fascination with finding value in the unexpected. Collectors often say that coins are miniature time machines, and the 1974 Lincoln penny proves this point perfectly. It transports us back to a moment in history when the mint experimented with aluminum, when inflation threatened the usefulness of the penny, and when everyday Americans carried this coin in their pockets without realizing its potential future worth today. Now in Second History we are going to explore the story of the 1976 Lincoln 1-cent penny from the United States, a coin that at first glance seems so ordinary, a small copper-colored piece that most people would overlook in their pocket change. But beneath its surface lies a history that connects to America's bicentennial year, a time of celebration and commemoration, and beyond its historical backdrop, the 1976 penny has caught the attention of collectors, investors, and numismatic enthusiasts because of its rare errors, mint mark anomalies, and production quirks that transformed a coin with a face value of just 1 cent into a collectible item that some now speculate could be worth as much as $90 million in the most extreme, unusual, and rare cases. So sit back, because we are going to uncover all the details, from its creation to its errors, its collector's journey, and its mind-blowing potential value. To understand the 1976 Lincoln penny, we need to remind ourselves that this was a year like no other in American history. The nation was celebrating its 200th birthday, the bicentennial of independence, and coins were at the heart of that celebration. The United States Mint created special bicentennial designs for the quarter, half-dollar, and dollar coins. People expected every coin minted that year to carry special commemorative designs. However, the humble 1-cent penny did not change its appearance. It still carried the familiar bust of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse designed by Victor David Brenner back in 1909, and on the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial design introduced in 1959. This decision left many collectors puzzled and even disappointed at the time because they thought the penny would join the commemorative program. Yet ironically, this very lack of change made the 1976 penny both overlooked and fascinating at the same time. It slipped under the radar during the big celebrations, but decades later became a coin that gained attention for other reasons. When we look at the basic details, the 1976 penny was struck at multiple mints. Philadelphia produced coins with no mint mark, Denver produced coins with the D mint mark, and San Francisco produced proof coins for collectors. The Denver Mint was one of the major producers and churned out hundreds of millions of 1976 D pennies. Because of such a high mintage, most people assumed they would never be worth more than their face value. However, the truth about coin collecting is that value is not determined only by how many coins were made, but by how many survive in pristine condition and how many contain anomalies that make them unique. This is where mint errors and mint mark oddities come into play, and where the story of the 1976 penny transforms from ordinary to extraordinary. Errors in coins occur during the striking process. Sometimes the die used to press the coin has cracks or misalignments, sometimes the planchet or blank metal disc has imperfections, and sometimes human mistakes cause double strikes or wrong planchets to be used. The 1976 penny is known to exhibit a wide range of these errors. Some coins were struck off-center, with part of the design missing and blank metal showing, which creates dramatic visual appeal for collectors. Others were double-struck, meaning the coin was hit by the press twice, creating overlapping images of Lincoln's profile or the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." Still others were struck on foreign planchets or leftover blanks intended for other denominations, leading to unusual weight or color differences. These are the kinds of mistakes that make collectors' hearts race because they transform a common penny into a one-of-a-kind rarity. Another important factor lies in the mint marks themselves. The Denver Mint used the D mint mark on 1976 pennies, and variations in the appearance of this tiny letter can dramatically affect value. There are cases where the mint mark was repunched, leading to what collectors call a repunched mint mark or RPM. Under magnification, you can see a ghostly second impression of the D underneath or beside the primary mark. These repunched mint marks are highly collectible because they are direct evidence of manual minting practices that were still being used at the time. Some 1976 D pennies also exhibit filled D errors, where excess metal or debris clogged the die and made the D mint mark appear weak or almost invisible. For a seasoned numismatist, these small differences make all the difference in the world, turning a coin worth 1 cent into something valued at thousands or even millions depending on condition and rarity. Now let's talk about the grading and condition of these coins, because this is another layer that dramatically influences their worth. Coins are graded on a scale from poor to mint state, with the most pristine examples being designated as MS 70. The vast majority of 1976 pennies circulated heavily, passing through countless hands, getting scratched, worn, and tarnished. Those are worth very little beyond sentimental value. But uncirculated examples, especially those that have survived untouched in rolls, bags, or collector's sets, can bring in significant premiums. A 1976 D penny in brilliant uncirculated condition with no flaws can sell for far more than face value. And if that coin also carries a rare error or mint mark anomaly, the price skyrockets. Auction houses have seen spectacular results when unique examples hit the block. This is why the coin community talks about figures as high as $90 million in connection with a 1976 penny. It is not that every penny from that year is worth that amount, but rather that a once-in-a-lifetime combination of error, condition, rarity, and collector demand could push a single example into stratospheric value territory. The cultural backdrop adds even more depth. The 1976 penny carries the aura of the bicentennial, even though it was not redesigned for the event. People who were alive then remember saving coins from that year as keepsakes. Families stored rolls of pennies thinking they might become valuable one day. And while most of those rolls remain common, the few coins that contain dramatic errors have become holy grails for collectors. This blending of nostalgia and rarity fuels the fascination with the 1976 penny. It's not just a piece of metal, it's a time capsule from America's 200th birthday, carrying with it the pride, history, and even the imperfections of the minting process at that time. Another fascinating aspect is the way errors on coins are categorized. There are planchet errors, die errors, and striking errors. Planchet errors for the 1976 penny include wrong stock blanks, such as coins struck on thinner or thicker metal than intended, leading to underweight or overweight pennies. Die errors include die cracks, die clashes, and cut breaks. A die crack creates a raised line across the coin, while a cut occurs when part of the die breaks off and leaves a blank raised blob of metal on the coin's surface. Striking errors include broad strikes, where the coin is struck without a collar and spreads out wider than usual, and multiple strikes, where overlapping images appear. All of these varieties have been recorded in 1976 pennies, making them an absolute playground for error collectors. The more dramatic the error, the more the value rises, sometimes exponentially. The story of the $90 million valuation often sparks disbelief, but it's important to explain how such numbers come about. In the world of rare coins, record prices are set when two or more passionate collectors compete for a one-of-a-kind piece. If a 1976 penny exists with an error so dramatic and unique, in gem condition, and tied to the bicentennial year, it could theoretically achieve an astronomical price at auction. We have seen similar phenomena with other coins, such as the 1933 St. Gaudens Double Eagle, which sold for over $7 million, or the 1794 Flowing Hair Dollar, which sold for over $10 million. These examples prove that in numismatics, rarity combined with collector demand can lead to prices that defy imagination. The 1976 penny, in its most extreme rare error form, fits that pattern. That we also must consider the role of third-party grading companies like PCGS and NGC. These organizations authenticate and grade coins, giving them credibility in the market. A 1976 penny certified as MS-67 or MS-68 with a rare error designation could immediately become the centerpiece of a collection. Such certified examples are the ones that break price records. My dears, again back a new history, and thank you for joining us now in third, another exciting journey into the incredible world of coins, treasures, and hidden wealth that many of us often overlook in our daily lives. Imagine holding a coin so small, so ordinary at first glance, that most people would walk past it without a second thought, yet that very same coin could be worth not just a few dollars, not just a few thousand, but millions. Now we are going to explore one of the most fascinating stories in American coinage, the story of the 1993 Lincoln 1-cent penny from the United States of America. This is a coin with a face value of only 1 cent, yet because of errors, mistakes, mint mark anomalies, and extraordinary circumstances in minting, certain examples of the 1993 penny are believed to have reached astonishing values of up to $87 million. To set the stage, we must first remember what was happening in the year 1993. The early 1990s were years of transition in the United States and in the world. Technology was advancing, the Cold War had just ended a couple of years earlier, and America was heading into a new chapter. The Lincoln penny, which had already been in circulation for more than 8 decades by then, was still one of the most familiar coins in the world. First introduced in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, this coin had become an everyday companion to millions of Americans. By 1993, the penny still carried Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, the front side of the coin, while the reverse still featured the Lincoln Memorial design created by Frank Gasparo in 1959. It was still small, copper-colored, and very ordinary to the casual observer, yet the story of the 1993 penny hides within its surface far more than meets the eye. In 1993, the United States Mint produced billions of pennies across its facilities, including the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and proof coins from San Francisco. Because of such a massive mintage, most people assumed these pennies would never be rare, that they would never rise in value, and that they would remain simple coins destined to spend decades rattling around in pockets, jars, and change drawers. However, the truth is that coin collecting is never about sheer numbers alone. It is about rarity, condition, and errors. Even among billions of coins, mistakes happen. Machines fail, dies crack, mint marks get misplaced, blanks are misfed, and sometimes the tiniest variation transforms an ordinary penny into a multi-million-dollar rarity. The 1993 penny is one such case where the possibility of errors, mint mark oddities, and dramatic mistakes has propelled a 1-cent coin into the category of legendary treasures. To understand why this coin could ever be worth $87 million, we must look at how errors and mint marks work. At the mints, coins are created by striking blank discs of metal called planchets with engraved dies. The pressure creates the image we see on the coin. However, any small defect in this process leads to a striking error. Some 1993 pennies are known to have off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned with the blank, leaving part of the coin empty and part of the design cut off. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the more valuable the coin, especially if the date is still fully visible. Other coins were double-struck, meaning the coin was hit twice by the dies, producing a ghostly overlapping image of Lincoln's profile or the words "In God We Trust." These double strikes are some of the most visually fascinating errors and can bring incredible sums at auction. There are also die-related errors. Over time, the dies that strike the coins can develop cracks or chips. A die crack appears on the coin as a raised line running across the surface. A cud error happens when part of the die actually breaks off, leaving a blank blob of raised metal on the coin. These cuds are dramatic and highly collectible. Some 1993 pennies also exhibit die clashes, where the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, transferring part of the design of one side onto the other. These coins with die clashes are prized by error collectors because they show the inner workings of the mint in action. Mint mark anomalies add another dimension. The Denver Mint used the letter D, and Philadelphia pennies carried no mint mark in 1993. However, mint marks at this time were still applied in ways that allowed for errors. A repunched mint mark, or RPM, occurs when the mint mark was punched into the die more than once, creating a doubled appearance. Some 1993 D pennies are known with such anomalies, and collectors seek them out eagerly. There are also filled mint mark errors, where debris or grease blocked part of the D, making it look faint, deformed, or even missing. Each of these varieties transforms the penny into something much rarer than its billions of ordinary counterparts. Another factor to consider is the composition of the 1993 penny. By this time, pennies were no longer made mostly of copper. Starting in 1982, the U.S. Mint shifted to zinc cores with a thin copper plating. That means the 1993 penny is primarily zinc, with only a coating of copper. However, sometimes minting mistakes led to coins being struck on the wrong metal. If a leftover copper planchet from before 1982 was mistakenly used in 1993, that coin would weigh more and would be instantly recognizable to an experienced collector. Such an error would be astronomically rare, since the mint had supposedly eliminated those blanks over a decade earlier. A 1993 penny struck on a copper planchet would be one of the greatest finds in coin collecting and could easily sell for tens of millions at auction. Condition is another driving force in value. Most 1993 pennies circulated heavily. They became scratched, worn, corroded, and dulled. Those coins are worth only a cent, maybe a few cents if they are slightly better. But pristine, uncirculated coins, especially those with rare errors, are a completely different story. Third-party grading services like PCGS and NGC evaluate coins on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70. A coin graded MS-70 is considered perfect, with no flaws visible even under magnification. A 1993 penny with a major mint error graded in the highest mint state condition could become one of the most valuable coins in the world. To put this into perspective, let us compare it to other famous coins. The 1933 St. Gaudens Double Eagle gold coin sold for over $7 million. The 1794 Flowing Hair silver dollar sold for over $10 million. A rare 1943 copper Lincoln cent, a coin with a major error in composition, sold for over $1 million. If a 1993 penny exists with a once-in-a-lifetime error, such as being struck on copper, combined with pristine condition and fierce bidding competition, then reaching figures like 87 million is not outside the realm of possibility in the rare coin market. The cultural context of the early 1990s also adds interest. Many people were saving coins during these years, collecting proof sets, mint sets, and rolls of uncirculated coins. The idea that a penny from this era could now be worth millions excites collectors and everyday people alike. It means that hidden treasures might still be sitting in jars, boxes, or drawers, waiting to be discovered. It means that the ordinary can become extraordinary through the smallest of mistakes at the mint. When we look at specific errors found in 1993 pennies, we see a long list of possibilities. There are broad strike errors, where the coin was struck without the collar that normally keeps it in shape, leading it to spread out wider and thinner. There are wrong planchet errors, where pennies were struck on dimes or foreign coin blanks, leading to unusual size, weight, or color. There are misaligned die errors, where one die was slightly out of alignment with the other, producing a coin with an off-center design on one side but properly centered on the other. There are transitional errors, where a coin carries features from a previous year's die or design. My dears, now in the fourth history we are going to uncover the fascinating story of a coin that is so small and so common in appearance that millions of people have held it in their hands, spent it without thinking, or left it at the bottom of drawers and jars for years. Yet among those billions of coins, a few rare examples hold secrets that could transform their value from just 1 cent into tens of millions of dollars. I am talking about the 2001 D. Lincoln 1-cent coin, a penny with a face value of a single cent, but one that in the right condition with the right errors, mint mark anomalies, and extraordinary circumstances has been valued at as much as $83.7 million. That is not just a small increase over its intended worth, it is an astronomical leap that makes this story one of the most captivating tales in the history of American coinage. To understand the 2001 D. Lincoln penny, we first have to step back and think about the year 2001 itself. This was a year of dramatic change in America and around the world. The nation was entering a new century, technology was transforming lives, and global events were reshaping history. Against this backdrop, the humble penny continued its long service as the most familiar coin in the United States. The Lincoln cent had been circulating since 1909, introduced on the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and it had long been a staple in American pockets, cash registers, and coin collections. In 1959, the reverse design was changed from the wheat ears to the Lincoln Memorial, a design by Frank Gasparo that showed the great monument in Washington, D.C. The 2001 penny, like so many before it, carried this familiar design. On the obverse was Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president, his face gazing to the right with the inscriptions "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the year 2001. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial sat in stately symmetry with the words United States of America, 1 cent, and E pluribus unum. At first glance, there was nothing unusual about the 2001 D penny. Billions were struck at the Denver Mint, marked with a small d mint mark beneath the date. They were intended for circulation, for everyday use, and for most people they were nothing more than that, but the story of coin value is never simply about how many coins are made. It is about what survives, what anomalies exist, and what unique stories each coin can tell. Even though the Denver Mint struck over 5 billion 2001 D pennies, the tiniest fraction of these contain errors, mistakes, and mint mark oddities that make them stand apart from all the rest. Those anomalies transform them from mere change into treasures, and when combined with pristine condition and collector demand, their value can climb into the millions. Errors are the heart of this story. A mint error occurs when something goes wrong in the process of creating a coin. The blanks used for pennies, called planchets, are fed into massive presses that stamp the designs into place. If something goes wrong with the dies, the planchets, or the striking process, the result can be a coin unlike any other. Collectors cherish these errors because they reveal the hidden world of minting, the moments when machinery or human error left behind a clue for future generations to find. Among 2001 D pennies, some of the most sought-after errors include off-center strikes. An off-center strike happens when the blank is not seated properly in the collar during striking, causing the design to be shifted to one side. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the more collectible the coin becomes, especially if the date and mint mark remain visible. A 2001 D penny struck 50% off-center could easily fetch thousands of dollars. Imagine one struck even more dramatically, yet still showing its full date and mint mark. Such an error could become priceless. Double strikes are another fascinating possibility. If the coin is not ejected properly after the first strike, it may be struck again by the dies, creating overlapping images of Lincoln's face or the inscriptions. A double-struck 2001 D penny can have ghost-like doubling of words like liberty or "In God We Trust," giving it a surreal appearance. Collectors love these because they are visually striking and undeniably authentic mint errors. Then there are broad strike errors, where the coin is struck without the collar that normally keeps it in place. This causes the coin to spread out, becoming thinner and wider than usual. These broad strikes are eye-catching and demonstrate how important the collar is in minting. Another dramatic type of error is the wrong planchet error. Sometimes a blank intended for another denomination or even for a foreign coin is fed into the press. If a penny design is struck on a dime planchet, the coin will be smaller and silver-colored, instantly recognizable. If it is struck on a planchet of different composition, the weight and color will differ. These are some of the rarest errors in the world of pennies, and a 2001 example of such a mistake would be a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Mint mark errors also play a major role in value. The Denver Mint used the D mint mark, and while by 2001 mint marks were no longer hand-punched into dies as they had been in earlier decades, there were still possibilities for anomalies. Filled D errors occur when debris or grease clogs the mint mark, making it appear faint, malformed, or nearly invisible. Sometimes the mint mark looks doubled or distorted due to minor mechanical doubling. Even though these might seem like small details, collectors value them because they mark a difference from the billions of other coins. A penny with a perfect date but a flawed or missing mint mark stands out as an oddity and can command impressive premiums. Another factor that must be considered is condition. The majority of 2001 D pennies circulated heavily. They became scratched, worn, discolored, and battered as they passed through countless hands. These are worth little more than their face value. But uncirculated examples, coins that were never used in commerce and have remained pristine since leaving the mint, are highly desirable. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC grade coins on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being a perfect coin. A 2001 D penny in mint state 67 or higher is already rare, but one in mint state 69 or even the elusive 70 would be a marvel. Combine such perfection with an extraordinary error, and you suddenly have a coin capable of reaching astronomical values. When we hear the figure of $83.7 million, it may sound unbelievable for a coin worth 1 cent. But numismatic history shows us that such valuations are not impossible. Rare coins with unique attributes have sold for tens of millions. The 1933 St. Gaudens double eagle sold for over $7 million. The 1794 flowing hair dollar sold for over $10 million. A 1913 Liberty Head nickel sold for millions. And the 1943 copper penny, a coin struck in error during World War II, sold for over $1 million. Each of these examples shows that when rarity, condition, and collector demand converge, values can leap beyond what anyone might expect. If a 2001 D penny exists with an unprecedented error, such as being struck on the wrong metal, combined with gem uncirculated condition and fierce competition among wealthy collectors, it is entirely possible that its price could reach $83.7 million. The cultural backdrop of 2001 adds another layer of fascination. Many Americans still collected coins casually, putting away mint sets, proof sets, and rolls of pennies from their banks. These rolls often sat untouched for decades, preserving uncirculated coins within. It is from these rolls and sets that many of the finest examples of error coins emerge. This means that somewhere in a basement or attic, tucked away in a forgotten box, there could be a roll of 2001 D pennies hiding a spectacular error coin. That thought excites collectors and treasure hunters alike because it means discoveries are still possible today. Examining the kinds of errors in more detail, we see that die errors are also significant. A die crack appears as a raised line on the coin's surface where the die itself cracked during striking. These can range from tiny hairline cracks to dramatic fractures across Lincoln's portrait. A die clash occurs when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, transferring part of each design onto the opposite side.